I'm Brandon.
And we're co-founders of Teknically. Now, like many businesses, we started small. Brandon and I first met in grade 1, and we were good friends through school. But we ended up going to different high schools, kind of lost touch, and reconnected during our first week at Laurier in the fall. Now in high school, each of us started our own businesses. I did freelance video production and web design, and Brandon started his own IT hosting company.
And so, from my previous business, I was able to identify many different pain points. And one of them was the lack of a robust monitoring system for both websites and servers. This was a huge problem for me, and I assumed it would be for others. And so the first critical assumption is that server owners waste time troubleshooting because existing solutions don't provide enough detail to solve the problem. I went on to validate these assumptions and conducted 21 interviews, which included industry leaders. The feedback that I got was mixed. People didn't value the monitoring, or others had hacked together their own solutions to solve this problem themselves. I knew that at this time that I had to focus on a customer segment that cared about their website, but didn't have the IT professional. This would be small businesses without IT staff. And so now with the new customer segment, I knew that the value proposition would also change. I wanted to focus on making websites more approachable for small businesses because they don't have that technical expertise. In order to do so, I included the basic website analysis and the content updates into the value proposition. Now, the second assumption is that small business owners need help managing their website because they are not technology oriented. These are all features that the business owner would need on a consistent basis, and so we assumed that they would be willing to pay a monthly subscription for that. These would also be features that would require ongoing costs too. Now, Andrew and I went out and interviewed 49 local small businesses from many different industries. And what we quickly found out was that small businesses don't want to jeopardize the relationship with their web developer, and they found the whole value proposition overwhelming and confusing simply because there was no focus. What we also realized too was that having some of the value props, such as the content updates and the emergency support, would add to our costs. This is because not all the small business owners would utilize the emergency support, and some of them would submit higher than anticipated content updates. We knew at this time that we needed to pivot and refocus.
Now, by this point, we had interviewed 70 people. So, what had we learned? Well, small business owners care about their website, but when web developers speak to them, it's like they're hearing tongues and terms and technology that they don't understand. Web developers also aren't experts in optimizing websites to drive marketing and sales. And so when owners go and try and see how effective their website is, it can be very difficult. Existing solutions can cost a lot of money, and others take hours and hours to figure out where the business stands. And so at the end of the day, between the time and the money that owners put out, there's very little return on investment on their website in terms of new customers that are being driven to their business through web leads. So from all the experience from the interviews and our past business experience, we found that we could approach this differently. We would take the analytics data, process it, analyze it, and be able to provide gorgeous graphs and a prioritized action plan of recommendations on how they can improve their website. So now from an informed standpoint, owners can go back to their web developers and really have great communication now on how to improve the website for maximum effectiveness. We decided we would call this new solution WebClio, and we were confident that this approach would truly help small business owners increase their return on investment on their website. So we went back to the canvas and realized that many aspects of the value proposition and others simply weren't relevant anymore. So the content updates, the emergency support, simply were outside the realm of our now focus on analytics. And we had realized through the interviews that there were certain small businesses who would never buy a solution. They just didn't have the cash flows or the priority on their website. And so we now could empty up a lot of space and pivot. So we pivoted to our third assumption, that small business owners can't evaluate and improve the marketing effectiveness of their website because they don't have the insight from existing services and providers. We also realized through the feedback from our interviews that the small businesses that were most interested, they all had high initial and lifetime value of their customers. This meant that if their website was just a bit more effective, so they got one more customer per month, they would be more than able to cover the cost of our solution and have a great return on investment. We also adjusted the value proposition, respectively. We would take data directly from industry-leading Google Analytics through their API, analyze and process it, and be able to provide a prioritized action plan. And all of this with gorgeous graphs in an online dashboard. So we went out and interviewed in person another 48 small businesses. And we had awesome feedback. We had really hit the mark. It really resonated with small business owners. So we asked them, how much would you be willing to pay for a solution that took this approach? And there's a good range, but the average was around $50 a month. So with our now reduced cost and an affordable price point, our margins were back where we wanted them. So we had now validated our third assumption, our value proposition and our customer segment. So we went back to the canvas and looked, how do we get this to market? And we quickly realized it would take months of development. So we were at a fork in the road. We could either start on development, or we could develop a minimum viable product, test for sales, and test our fourth assumption, that people would actually pay for this approach to analytics. So we built a minimum viable product. We quickly realized that we could segment out certain features of our online solution, do the analysis manually, and deliver it all in a beautiful physical report. Over the course of 20 days, we went through 4 major prototypes, sending them out to potential customers, getting their feedback, and iterating. We did lots of research into different analysis techniques and which ones would really match this medium. Once we were ready for sales, we headed back to the business model canvas and adjusted it for the minimum viable proposition. So we adjusted the value proposition and added sort of the key features we would be focusing on, including competitor analysis, but again, that prioritized action plan of recommendations. With our initial customers, we would look for a strong partnership so we could get feedback and quickly iterate. When we looked at costs, we found that we could produce this really affordably, under $2 if they were locally and under $5 if we had to ship it. And it would only take about 3 to 4 hours of our time to do the analysis manually. We decided to price the report at $99 each, essentially the cost of 1 to 2 months of the online solution, because many of the recommendations would require those 1 to 2 months for all the analysis to be completed online and the recommendations to come to fruition. So we decided to go out and get sales. And we went through many different channels to test which one was most effective. We went through phone calls, A/B testing of email, direct sales in person, and through some blogs and forums, and really found which ones were most effective for selling this proposition. So within 2 weeks of our launch, we'd sold 10 reports at $99, and we had some awesome feedback coming back from these small business owners. Here's one of our first owners that bought the solution, Bob Frank of Frank's Jewelry. And he said, Webplio gave him focus. He now had recommendations that he could understand, and he was going back to his web developer for the first time in years, confidently making suggestions. Now, for an independent jeweler, Frank said that his initial value was about $500 to $1,000. And so we also talked to other professional service firms and asked what their value was. And so for an accounting firm, it's a lot more. It can be anywhere from $6,000 to $25,000, one firm told us. So the opportunity cost of not getting these new customers is huge for small businesses. So we took everything we had learned from our MVP and went back to Webplio. How are we going to get this solution on the desk of small business owners everywhere? We went back to the canvas and saw that there were many gaps and started to fill them. We would initially target sales through direct sales with a long-term target of organic growth through our website. With our initial beta users, we'd be again looking for a strong partnership to get feedback and iterate quickly, make sure the solution really matches their needs. We'd also provide them an exclusive newsletter to let them know what changes we were making to adapt to the always changing analytics space. We were able to keep our costs low and ultimately great margins, and we brought on Kevin very quickly to help us with development. Moving closer to our closed beta launch, we brought on Janine to help with direct sales, and we quickly started writing original content to boost our online presence. We also partnered with industry-leading newsletters and thought leaders and evangelists in different industries to make sure that we were credible within that space. So, over 5 months with the business model canvas, we've been able to develop Webplio very lean. We've gone through 5 assumptions, tested them with 118 interviews, gone through 2 major pivots, 4 MVP prototypes, and sold 10 of our snapshot reports at $99 each, countless iterations, and we're very excited to be bringing on our first Webplio customers in closed beta. Thank you very much.
7 minutes for questions.
Okay, so really good work. But the thing I have a concern about is you said on desk everywhere, coupled with complete analysis manually. So I'm going to ask you about capacity and growth. I see Kevin's up there with you.
Yeah.
But how many jobs think you can handle, and what happens when you get popular?
Yeah, so just to clarify, the WebTO snapshot report was just to test the market. It's not something we're continuing long term.
Okay.
And the analysis done online will be entirely automated. So we won't have to do anything once it's coded.
Okay.
So it'll be very scalable, very easy to scale.
Thank you.
So the dashboard is something that they would continue to get with the $50 subscription?
Yeah. So just like you go to an accountant frequently to get financial sort of advice and insight from that sense, we expect that our customers would continue coming back month after month to make sure and track those changes in their website.
And how do you define small business, and how did you decide that that was the market that you were going to go after?
So from all of our interviews, we quickly realized that the small businesses that we needed to target would be ones that have websites, ones that have a high lifetime value of the customer, because some of the restaurants that we interviewed and other sort of businesses simply didn't have free cash flow or the money available and couldn't justify valuing something like this. And we also need to target one with no IT professionals, because if they did have one, then they would be doing this themselves.
So you said direct sales, and that always scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
So that's your hypothesis. How did you get to that hypothesis, and how are you proving just what you're doing it? So just walk me through how you got there and why you're really doing that.
Yeah, so we went through many different methods to sell the report and found that direct sales, when we could explain and sort of see them and they could trust us, that was a good form for these initial sales. And so it takes a long time to build up online credibility to the point that we'll be generating organic leads through Google. And so for the initial couple months, we'll be working with Junaid and we'll be going out and selling on the online solution. But we already have forecasted that the commission will drop off as we move to purely organic sales, hopefully by the September timeframe.
So what do you mean by organic sales?
Organic, so when people search in Google sort of analytics solution or any terms that...
Okay, so indirect sales, and sales not through the sales force.
Yeah, so where we essentially have a zero user acquisition cost.
Okay, so you should probably put that in there, because I thought you were building with a big sales force.
Okay.
When you say direct sales, that was like something.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's just for these first initial couple months while we ramp up.
Yeah, and then my next question, which would have been a segue to that, but you're saying it's not direct sales, is when you talk about your customer segment, this initial high initial and lifetime value, that's not really a market segment, that's a type of customer, but that falls into many segments. How would you segment that? How would you create that segment so that your direct sales force could get to them? I mean, even in the short term, that's a little...
Yeah, so...
It's not like you can go look at SIT code for that.
No, and so what we found is initially we thought we were just targeting professional service firms, but we found when we had great sales response from a jeweler and a dentist that it wasn't just limited to lawyers and accountants. So what we're doing is we have sort of a list of different firms in industries that may not be SEAM related, but still share these same characteristics. And that's sort of what we're basing our research in terms of which firms to target with the direct sales. That's what we're basing on.
Okay, I have one more question. So there was a slide up there, maybe I didn't understand it, where you said it looked like, depending on the industry, the value that they got out of it or something like that. Was this slide you have them? So what did you mean by that slide? Because that implied that you could charge different prices. Well, yeah, does that mean you could charge different prices by industry? No.
Our solution isn't directly related to sales. What we do is we provide owners with the information they need to, from an informed standpoint, make improvements to their website. So at the end of the day, we feel that the improvements will help them gain credibility online and possibly new sales. So in that sense, we're not basing our price point on what their selling price is.
Okay. It's a flat fee, no matter what they're doing and what they're
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Great presentation, guys. The thing that would have killed it for me is if you had ended with, and here are our top 3 risk hypotheses, and this is what we're doing about it. But great job. Thank you.
So I've got a good friend who's an entrepreneur who got excited one day and he came up to me and said, you know, Ted, I finally found the perfect business model, the kind of business where I can go to the post office box, open up the door, and pull out checks. And it sounds like you happen to find a business model like that. So I got to tell you, you've got a high score in this competition for that reason. But I worry a little bit about the fact that you're going to convert to a zero acquisition cost, organic growth type of model, that you're not going to optimize the revenue opportunity. How do you think about that? And I'm going to ask you an unfair question. How do you think about first optimization and secondly exit strategy? And it's kind of outside the scope, but I can't help but think that.
Okay, so kind of the logic behind this was that we would get the direct sales initially so that we could work closely with the small businesses, because the service is kind of dependent on results. So we know that by working with these small businesses, building a close relationship and getting their feedback and testimonials, we can then use that in our marketing and then kind of gain a lot of traction through that in terms of once we're credible, we build our online presence, we'll be ready to scale and really optimize and get as many sales as we can through all those avenues. Because what we found is that with a product like this, it's great to start in the beginning sort of directly, but as you move along, you want to focus on the website, getting people through like Google, because small business owners are constantly searching on there too. And in terms of exit strategy, we're kind of focused on collecting lots of data, and then once we have that data, analyzing it so that we can provide insightful information. And there are companies out there, Google might be one of them, where they collect lots of data and want to make that useful. And so we would be looking at options like that in terms of exit strategy by acquisition at that point.
I think you're overlooking one key thing, and that is think about the correlation between, you know, adaptations of a proposition and the segmentation of it. My sense is you are leaving money on the table by pursuing that strategy. I think you're falling into the AdWord analytics kind of approach, and I think that makes sense, but think about targeting that.
Yeah, and if I could just add one thing. As part of the original content we're writing, a lot of it isn't at all pushing our product. It's sort of really good information for small business owners. And so in the coming months, we're going to have that information on our site to help with organic, but we're also going to be partnering with industry newsletters and blogs so that we are going directly to accountants, to lawyers, through avenues, through newsletters that they trust. So we aren't leaving those off the table, but it's definitely something that we're going to keep in consideration. Thank you.
Great job, guys. Great job. You're going to have to help me out a little bit, though.
One small question.
It's one small question. And it follows from your plan to have this evolve into that indirect sales model. In that scenario, I'm struggling to see what the unfair advantage you guys offer is over the competition in that scenario. So maybe if you could talk to me about the unfair advantage of your value prop. Like, how's it protected, or how can you beat out competition from the big guys like a Google, who could very easily probably kill you on this if they decided Monday morning they wanted to do so.
Yeah, and that's definitely a huge risk that we've been looking at. And so there's a lot of big players. Google's definitely the by far biggest. And what we've seen with Google is that they're not necessarily interested in entering any product near this price point. So they right now have their free level, and then they have a premium one for businesses who want to get set up with a personal assistant and along those lines, except that starts at $150,000 a year. So there really is a big gap. Others in the solution really, instead of making them the solutions easier to use, they just throw more data at you. And so we've done a lot of research, and we think that we're sort of one of the few solutions that are focusing on those who aren't super tech friendly. So the recommendations, they're very easy to understand. And that's what we're finding from the feedback from small businesses.
And I think it's come all the way around to some of the points that have just been made here, right? Is if this idea goes big and you drive some indirect sales, you better have an exit strategy, because if you don't, someone will just crush you like a bug, right? And just, can you protect this in some way? Is there an additional way to protect this?
It's very difficult to claim intellectual property on code, and that's sort of something that we have looked at, but at the end of the day, what we're doing in terms of the automated analysis It's sort of very unique, very few people are doing it, and it takes a lot of time to really perfect that. So we're going to have a pretty decent head start, and we're very open to acquisition from some of the big people.
You should probably try and talk to Ted and David after this. I think they've probably got some good advice they could give you.
Might be another checkbook on you. Congratulations, is good.